Okay, so we're back with hour 2. We've built our little sort of demo header, and now we're going to want to do the same thing, but we're going to want to flesh it out and make it fully featured and integrated into our beer store application. So first thing we're going to do is go back to our code editor. I'm going to close up those pages. I'm going to make a new file, new PHP file, which I'm going to call header.php. So what I'm going to do in my header, just like we did in the previous header, I want the opening HTML tags to be in here. We'll put in our doc type. We'll put in our head section. We'll leave our page title blank. We'll use a PHP variable for that. We'll open a body tag. But I'm going to take out the closing body and closing HTML tags. We're going to put those in a footer instead. So we'll build the header, we'll get it working, then we'll add a footer on later. Now our CSS links right now we're using the Bootstrap Content Delivery Network for styles. So I'm going to open up my beers.php page. We also have this meta tag. Maybe what I'll do is, so I want to move some of this stuff out of my beers.php and I want to put it in the header instead. So I'm going to copy my meta tag. And I will paste that into my header.php. I then want to take my Bootstrap CSS links as well. We'll copy those from our beers page. And we'll paste that into our header. We'll wind up removing this whole section from our beers page in a minute. So now our CSS links and our meta tag, these are part of our header.php. So if I go to my beers.php page, if I take out, so go down, I'm going to find my opening body tag. I'm going to highlight everything from the starting doc type, from the doc type down to the opening body. We'll take that out. And now let's add our header here instead. So we'll use PHP and we'll require, or we can use require once, doesn't matter. So all of the HTML we used to have at the top is now coming from the header instead. We'll deal with the page title in a minute. If I go back and refresh my beers.php page, it should look exactly the same as it did before. We've just basically taken the head section, moved it into a separate file. The only thing that's going to be missing is our page title is going to show up as blank right now. So I'll open up. And remember, if you took my file off GitHub, you'll have to change the connection string. So there's no difference. We've basically just split this up into 2 pages, which are spliced together at runtime. When we view the source, we've got a complete HTML document. So this stuff comes from the header, and our actual beers page is here. So far, so good. Let's add the page title. So we'll set the title. We'll set that to beer listings. And we're going to do this before we show the header. We need to set that variable first, because when our header.php loads, it's going to be looking for this variable. So now in our header, in the title, we can use a PHP echo statement to print out that value. So we'll echo out that same variable, and now if we go back to beer listings and refresh it, our page title should be showing up in our browser tab at the top of the page. Set the variable, call the header, and then when the header loads, print out that value. So now my title's showing up here. So what we want to do now is we want to build out a navigation bar that will appear in this header. So there's our title being echoed out. So inside our opening body tag, we want a nav section. So we'll put in 2 links for starters, then we'll also put in kind of a logo and link back, and we'll style it with Bootstrap. So for starters, let's put in 2 links. One link that goes to beer.php. And the text of our link can say add beer. Our second link will go to beers, plural. The text of our link can say beer listings. Underneath our nav, we should put all of the content of our page. Let's put it inside of a main. We're going to open up a main tag. We're not going to close it here. The closing main tag will appear at the bottom of the page, underneath all the content. So if I go to my beers.php, down at the bottom, I will, doesn't really matter if I do it, I guess before my JavaScript, we'll close that main tag. Eventually, we'll move this stuff into a footer. We'll do that next. So now if I refresh, we have the start of a navigation bar, right? I can go to my add page. This page doesn't have the header, so we want to include our header on this page as well. Then we can get rid of these links. Rather than having links on the individual pages, we want these links to show up on the top of every page. So I'm also going to open up beer.php, and we're going to do the same things here. We can replace everything here. We'll just take all that code out. We've already got an opening PHP tag now. So we'll set title and show header. We'll set our title as beer details. Remember, this page might be used for adding a new beer. It might also be used for editing an existing record. And then we can require So far, this is pretty similar to what we did with our little page 1 and page 2 example. Set the title on each page. and then require or include our header. Now we should be able to jump back and forth between these two pages by using our links in our nav bar. Then we'll work on formatting the nav bar so it looks better. So if I go back here and click add, now we have this shared navigation. We can get rid of these links now. On my beer.php, if I scroll down to where my PHP tag ends, the very first HTML tag on here, sorry, the second one is this link that says beer listings with an anchor tag. We can get rid of that. We don't need it. We now have a link in the nav bar. So let's delete that. If I go to beers, we also have a link here that says add a new beer. We can get rid of this one too. So now the only links are up here in our navigation bar. So we have a working header. I would like to add some stuff to it. Let's give this a class. So we can use Bootstrap for this. We'll give it a class of Nav Bar. Nav Bar default. This should give it a gray background and make the Nav Bar span the width of the page. So you can kind of see a border underneath it a little bit. We're also going to put a link over on the, we're going to put these things in an unordered list, and we want them to be right aligned. So I'll create an unordered list and give it a class. Give it a nav class. If we use all of these, and then we wrap these inside of li tags, this should push our links off to the right side of the page. So I've added the class here for the nav tag, all of these class definitions to the UL, and then our two LIs. We'll see how that looks. So my links have changed color and they're now pushed over to the right. They're also aligned vertically in my nav bar, which is good. Before they were pushed up to the top. We also should give our application a title. And usually that title appears at the top left, and we expect we can click it. We're going to go back to the site homepage. We don't really have a site homepage, but we can build one pretty quickly. We can also really easily generate a little logo here. So before my unordered list, I'm going to put in, let's see, we'll put in some text and we'll make it a link. We'll call it COMP1006 web app. I'll just give my link a title. Right now it goes to default.php. We don't have that page yet. I'm also going to give it a class of Nav Bar brand. This will make it a little bigger and again should center it vertically in the navigation bar. So this will appear off at the left where we would expect to see a site logo. So we will build this. If I click it right now, we'll get a page not found because we don't have default.php. We'll create a quick one in a few minutes. Just see how this looks when I refresh. I'll put my code back in a minute. So now I get this title here. It's bigger font than my links. It appears on the left, and we've made it a link. It's okay. We'll build that page out. I also want to add a little logo. I have no skills to generate one. Fortunately, Thomas showed us Font Awesome, and Font Awesome probably has a beer logo we can use. So we're going to need to add a link to the Font Awesome style sheet. I've given you that link. Well, actually, there's a link right here. So in a new browser tab, let's go to fontawesome.io. So in here, the first thing we want to do is link to their style sheet. If I click on Get Started and scroll down, it says easiest, the Bootstrap CDN. Paste this code into the head section of your site. So again, I just went to fontawesome.io and click Get Started. Scroll down right here. There's a link to the Font Awesome CSS. I'm just going to copy that. And let's copy that into our header.php. That way, all of the pages on our site that use the header, they automatically have access now to anything from Font Awesome. So I'll just go into my header, and under my Bootstrap links, I'll just paste in that CSS link. And now we have access to all of those hundreds of icons that Font Awesome gives us. So just go to fontawesome.io, click Get Started, and scroll down to this first section and copy that line that I've highlighted in blue. I know it's hard to read, but you can probably see it on your own screen. So we'll copy that line, and we'll paste it into our header. Now we need to see if we can, I'm going to click on icons. I'll just go to all. And if I search for beer, well, there we go. There's our beer mug icon. Perfect. So we want to have our beer mug appear over here on the left beside the title of our application. So how do we do it? Well, it tells us right here. We put in an I, class equals FA, FA-beer. Or if we want this size, what have we got? We've got FA, FA beer, FA-2. So let's try that. So inside of our link, because usually the logo is also clickable, not just the text. So in here, we'll put in I class equals FA for Font Awesome, FA beer, FA, we'll try that size, 2. I'll put in a space. So this should generate our little beer icon beside our application title. And it's inside of our link, so both of them are part of that link. We can click the text, or we can click the icon. So there we go. By using that size, it matches the size pretty well. So now both are clickable. So we can go to add a beer, we can view, we can edit, and we've got this shared header now. Eventually, we'll want to put some other links in our header. Next week, we're going to need to build a registration page and a login page. We'll need a logout link. So we'll add to this navigation next week, and we're also going to make it dynamic. We're going to make it so that until you're logged in, you don't see these links. You're only going to see links that say register and log in. Once you've logged yourself in, the register and login links will get hidden, and our nav bar will say add beer, beer listings, and log out. So that's where we're going with this for next week. Now, we do have a couple other pages. We have save and we have delete. We don't really need to put the header on those pages because those are basically invisible pages, right? Our delete page, all we're doing is deleting a record and then taking the user right back to our beers page. So we don't really have to put the header and footer on here. Same with our save page. We're just redirecting. So our header's basically done. I don't think there's anything else on here for today. So we're going to come back to it next week to add those other links and also check if our user's logged in or not, or they're anonymous. But this should be everything we need. I can leave this code up for another minute if anybody needs anything here. If your header is working, then the next thing I want you to do is create a new PHP file and save it as footer.php. So not only do we have this shared header at the top of all our pages, we want a shared footer at the bottom. You certainly don't have to follow these, use these classes, or use these styles for your nav bar. You can make it look however you want. I'm just using Bootstrap and Font Awesome to save me time. Well, our footer is going to be really simple. What things do we know for sure need to go in there? Yeah, we'll want a copyright. What HTML tag should go in the footer? Yeah, we'll probably want a footer section to surround the copyright and any other text. What other tag should go in the footer? Because it's going to be at the very bottom of our page. Yeah, the closing HTML. And what else are we going to want to close in the footer? We'll close the body and we'll close the main. So in my footer, yep, let's close the main section, close the body, close the HTML. Under main, we'll want a footer section. There's something else we have in the bottom of our beers and beer pages that should probably get moved to the footer. What else do we have that we should move? Yeah, let's move the JavaScripts. Again, this saves us from having to repeat those JavaScript links on every page. Let's just put them in the footer. So in beers.php, I've got this JavaScript section where we've got jQuery. We've got a link to our app.js, so that was our own JavaScript file we wrote last week for our delete confirmation, as well as we have the Bootstrap JavaScript. So I'm going to take all of that, copy it, and go back to my footer, and I'm going to paste it down below the footer section. You can put it inside, it really doesn't matter. It should just go before the end body. So now in my footer, I'm going to put in copyright. That'll generate the copyright symbol. Ampersand copy semicolon 2016. You can put whatever text you like in here. Doesn't matter. The standard kind of boilerplate stuff that we would expect to see at the bottom. If we had social media links, this would be where we would put them. And in fact, we'll probably do that later on when we look at integrating, doing Facebook integration. I also want to use Bootstrap to style this. Well, actually, I won't do it yet. We'll see how it looks. So this should be everything. So I now want to go into my beers.php and my beer.php and take out everything down at the bottom of that page. And instead, I want to require my footer. So I'll go to beers.php. I'm going to take out all of that stuff. It all now comes from the footer. And inside this, I already have a PHP tag down at the bottom, a closing tag. And now I can just require my footer. If I load the page in the browser, my footer now should show up at the bottom here. So when I click beer listings, here's our footer. So we've got a copyright. I'm going to give it a class. What I want is my footer to span the whole page, and I want to give it a different background color. So I'll use the Bootstrap alert class. If I use alert-info, it should make that background, I think, a light blue color. If you want a red background, you use alert danger. If you want a yellow background, you use alert warning. If you want it green, I think you use alert success. So you can play around. Yeah, so now I've got that kind of pale blue background that spans the whole page. So any other things that you think should appear in the bottom of every page? You want your phone number, you want your email address, you want links to your social media feeds, they would go in here. So I've included this on the bottom of beers.php. I want to do the same thing, go to beer.php and do the same. I want to embed my footer. So I'll go to beer.php, scroll all the way to the bottom. Going to take this stuff out, open a set of PHP tags, and require my footer. So now both these pages have a common header or footer. So this is starting to look like a, not quite at a production level web application, but we're getting there. We're moving in the right direction. So anything we want to change at the bottom of the page, we can open this file and change it. All the pages in our site automatically have that new change. We're going to make one more page that's really simple that uses our header and footer. We have that link in the top of our nav bar that now goes to default.php. We don't have that page. So we're going to make a static page. All it has is a little bit of content in the middle with the header at the top and the footer at the bottom. So I want you to go ahead and make a new file, call it default.php. We don't need all of the header, all of the HTML at the top and bottom, because that stuff now lives in our header and footer. So make a new file, call it default. So here, we'll set the title. You can set the title for your homepage to be anything you want. Doesn't matter. and we will add our header. Down at the bottom, add the footer. See how easy this is getting to build out our site? We'll just put some static content in the middle. You can say whatever you want here. You don't have to copy my text at all. So the only thing that's on this page is the unique content. Other than that, we just have the header and footer. I'll have to check it out in my browser, see how it looks. This Jumbotron class should give this section a gray background, should center it on the page, and I will give it rounded corners. So you can see the gray. So at least now we have a home page, describes what we're doing. When you're out job hunting for co-op, you can show somebody this application, tells them at least what this is all about and what we're doing. So now my 404 error has gone away. If you want to just put lorem ipsum text in there, you can do whatever, you can say whatever you want. And again, we should probably check to make sure that we still have a well-formed HTML document. Looks like it. So we've got our head, body, main, close the main when our content's done, and then add our footer at the bottom. So we have a valid HTML document with all of our CSS, JavaScript in the right place, and our code is nice and modular and reusable. I have never, ever built a website that didn't have a shared header and shared footer. You probably aren't likely to build many either. Okay, so this is just kind of standard that we set these up. So we can share these visual components like headers and footers, but we also can share other things like pieces of code. So we want to use the same functionality in PHP, use it on different pages. It would make sense for us to put that code in a separate file and use include or require, so we don't have to copy and paste it or type the same code over and over again. We have one of these functions in our application already. What code have we written repeatedly in many different files? Basically all the beer files. Yeah, the database connection. We have it here. We've got it here. We've got it any page that needs the database, and our save page has it as well. So it would make life much easier if we had this in one place. Right? Not only would it be less typing for us, and it's obviously easy to mess up that line, it'd be easier if we only have to type it once. Why else might it be a good idea for our database connection to keep it in one file rather than repeating it on every page? Could be. Okay, yeah, if it's only in, obviously the more places it is, the easier it is for someone to find it. So it would be more secure to keep it in one place. Why else would it be a good idea to keep our database connection just in one place, besides security?
In case we change something. Yeah.
Absolutely, right? If we have a huge site and every page uses our database and we have to change that connection, we don't want to go into every page and do a find and replace. We want to open one file and make the change. What would be some reasons? Why would you ever change? We do have to change these things sometimes. What would be a scenario where you might have to change your database credentials, Rob? Right. So I'm hosting over here and I'm moving the site to another server. Well, maybe I can keep this stuff the same, but that host value is going to change. So that would be one when we move it from one host to another. Why else might we ever have to change something in our database? Yeah, we have to change the password. When would you change, when or why might you change a database password? Yeah, so your site gets compromised or the server gets hacked. You're probably going to want to reset those credentials. Pick a new username and password and delete the old one. Or is that?
If your site has a registry system, you can create different users. You don't want to use all your users to use the admin features, so you can limit them in the database.
Yep. That's a good reason. You think of any other reasons we might have to change the database username and password? Devin?
Fire someone you don't want them to have access.
Absolutely. Somebody who was on the development team and who has access to the code is leaving. They're fired or they're just taking another job somewhere else, so they're not on the project anymore. Well, if they have a copy of the code, they can go in and access the database. So anybody who leaves, as soon as somebody leaves, you're gonna have to change the username, at least the password, probably the username and password. So again, life is a lot easier if we have this stuff just in one place in our application. We don't want to have to go and find it everywhere. Okay. It's a big pain. So let's do this. Let's make another file. This won't take us long. Let's make a new PHP file. We'll call it db.php, nice short name. So when we're requiring it, minimal typing. Call it db.php. In here, I'm just going to close my PHP tags. Back to DB. So this will be the last time we type our connection string. The other nice thing about putting this in one file, many times when we're building an application, we actually have two databases. We have a local database we're working on our own machine, but then we also want to be able to connect to the live server. So if I want to do that, what I'll often do is put in both a local connection string. You don't have to do this. This is just for an example. Then I can put in live where I might have, my DreamHost credentials. Now I won't leave both of these lines active, but if I want to work on my local database, well, I just comment out this line. If I want my application to work on the live database, I enable this line and comment out that one. So I often have two versions of a connection string in my database file. Local one for development and then a live one. You don't need to do this for now. So what we want to do, we now have our db.php, so we can go in to all of our beers pages, and now we want to replace that line with just a require statement. Well, that's less code. We don't have to type out that long connection string anymore. So there are 4 pages that are using it. Beers, on our delete page, on our save page, and on our beer.php. All 4 of the files that have beer in the file name. Every one of those has the database connection. So I'll just replace it. Once we do this, our application should still run this exact same way. There shouldn't be any difference when we run it in the browser. So I've replaced that connection line on all 4 files with require. Now here's an example where you need to use require and not include. If our db.php file isn't found, our page can't continue. It's going to throw an error. Without the database connection, none of our code for doing create, read, update, and delete can execute. All that stuff will fail. So we should be using require or require once and not include. If I go back to my browser, everything works same way. So we're always going to do this. Any application you build, when you do assignment 2, when we work with ASP.NET or we work with Node.js, we always have our database credentials written one time and shared. It makes no sense to be putting that stuff in every page. It's far too much work and takes much too long when we have to change it. So just replace all your connection lines with require. Now I do have one question for you. We're inside of PHP tags here when we call require, yet I also put PHP tags in here. So I have one set of PHP tags inside of another set. It still works. Do I actually need the PHP tags in this file, or could I take them out? Yeah, if I take them out and save my change, everything should still work. I can still oh, not on this page it can't, because interesting. Okay, I'm actually surprised by that. I thought it would work. So I still am going to want those tags in here. It's better that I have them in here anyway, because when I take them out, I don't get my code hinting in my editor. Without the PHP tags, my editor doesn't recognize this is PHP, not HTML. So it's no problem that those tags are nested one inside the other. It's fine. So the things we're going to very commonly share in every site are what we've already done. Common header, common footer, share the database connection. Can you think of anything else we might want to share across different pages of our application? What other things might we want? Could be. We could. The disconnect line, yeah, so we could disconnect, but the disconnect line is so simple, we're probably, that's just as, the code is just as simple to keep it that way. Excuse me. If we have any other features, maybe we have a kind of search that we want on different pages. Well, we could put it in the header, or we could build our own search file and then include it or require it wherever we wanted to use that search, for example. So any functionality that we want to have on multiple pages, it makes sense to write it in its own file and include it. Actually, I could show you a quick example of one. So in this site, so that feature that we have a library of code that will take this HTML table and submit it all and build it as an Excel file. So when I click export to Excel, it generates this Excel file. Well, on this site, every single search page, and there are a number of them, all the search results can always be sent to Excel. The function for generating the Excel file is long. It's probably 50 or 100 lines of code. We don't want to repeat that function on all of the search pages because there's many different searches. Here's one. You know, I can go into another, get search results somewhere, maybe. Right? Again, I have an export to Excel. So this is a different page, different table, different search results. But in both cases, I want to be able to save my files to Excel. So we wrote this as a function, put it in its own file that we called, you know, Excel. And all of the search pages are requiring that function so they all can use that same code. We don't have to rewrite or copy that code to all of the different search pages because to use it. If we have to change that function, well, now I can just go into my Excel file and change it there. And all the pages that link it will get the updated version of my code. So this is something, as we're planning and building our applications, we need to be thinking about. What stuff is going to be reusable, or are we going to need more than once? And if we have some of that stuff, we want to put it in its own files. Okay, this is probably a good place for us to take a break. That was all we need to do with include and require. Okay, I can leave the code up or I can show you whatever somebody needs. And we'll come back in 10 minutes. We'll take a look at handling errors.